This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
What a week in Canadian politics, including right here in our home province of Alberta. On today's Real Talk, a crossover episode with the co-hosts of the wildly popular and entertaining Bad and Bitchy podcast, Erica Ifill and Kristin Raworth, on why Danielle Smith won, what this means for Rachel Notley and the NDP. Is the left dying on the vine on the prairies? And of course, we'll talk federal politics as well. This episode of Real Talk is presented by our friends at CanCell. It's been a big week in cannabis across the country, and our partners over at CanCell have been up to some really exciting stuff. CanCell is Ontario's provider of cannabis retail training. They're training bud tenders and retailers to sell cannabis safely and responsibly. You probably remember last week we mentioned that CanCell and We Know Training are working on the first ever training program for selling cannabis-infused food and beverages at approved consumption sites. So that's a really exciting change that might be coming in the near future. And they've got a great course all ready for that. CanCell is also going to be at the Lift Conference and Expo from June 1st to 3rd in Toronto. The Lift Expo is one of the premier events for movers and shakers in the cannabis sector, and honestly, it's a lot more fun than your average conference. You can find them there at booth 1806 or check them out online right now at cancell.ca. Very cool to have Erica Ifill and Kristin Raworth here in studio. Some people, listeners, subscribers to Bad and Bitch are going to be going, who the hell is this guy? So it's a pleasure to introduce myself as well to your audience. But thanks for joining us here in studio.
This is so awesome. Okay, so first of all, y'all don't know like the studio setup here. I'm just like, wow. Like there are cameras, there's like nice table, nice floors. There's like, you got everything here.
Well, this is why we
like,
wanted to get you in studio, you know?
Like,
so
is there an apartment here? I feel like there's an apartment here somewhere hidden.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We want to get it kind of the green room is as best as we can do right now.
There we
where
go.
you were lounging, where you were chilling ahead of time.
With all the beer?
Yeah, that's right.
This is like the second time you've brought that up, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
finally getting Erica now to agree to sponsorship for our podcast because now she sees what we can accomplish.
Yeah, that's right.
I was not against it. I just wanted to make sure the product was right.
You joined forces with Erica, like 3-4 months ago now? You came on as co-host of Bad Bitchy?
Yeah, so we did our very first podcast together actually about a year ago, right before I went to France. We did I came on as the sort of, I guess, Alberta politics person to pinch hit for the co-host at the time who was away. And then I came on a couple other times after that, and then permanently, I think, 4 months ago, I think was when it happened.
And so tell people, for Real Talk podcast listeners, as well as, of course, our friends that are going to be joining us watching on YouTube as well, what's Bad and Bitchy all about? What's the premise of it?
Well, it's what we call an intersectional feminist podcast. And so let me break down what that means. So basically what we do is we talk about politics from the perspective of women. We center a lot of the issues we look at are the same issues that you're going to read about in whatever medium you decide to,
wherever you get your news, so to speak.
Consume your news. But it's about actually kind of doing deep dives and centering vulnerable communities in that analysis of politics, of policy, and pop culture. And pop culture is really important because pop culture is, I always say it's the gateway to politics. It's the gateway to social issues. For example, isn't Taylor Swift dating a Nazi or something? I mean,
Johnny, check our insurance.
Look, I didn't make this up.
I avoid the T-Swift online dialogue because they're insane.
They're coming after you now.
Okay,
the
this
Swifties
is the first I've heard of it, but apparently Taylor Swift's rumored boyfriend. Okay, and I'm getting this from timesofisrael.com for context. I don't know. This is literally the first I've ever heard of this. Maddie Healy
Matt Healy,
once allegedly gave a Nazi salute on stage. He's lead singer of the band The 1975, and he has apparently angered Taylor Swift's fans. This is reported May 26th, so just, like a week ago, with statements and actions deemed offensive to minorities and women. I hadn't even heard about this. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it all happened because Taylor Swift did a duet with a new rapper called Ice Spice, or what we call femcs, so female rappers. And Ice Spice, so her alleged boyfriend, Matt Healy, got on some podcast and started talking derogatory about Ice Spice, anti-black comments, misogynistic comments. So that's what it comes from.
Interesting.
I know.
I'm reading
look
this
at me,
at a
just-
concert days before International Holocaust Remembrance Day back in January. Healy gave what appeared to be a Nazi salute in an act that quickly went viral, made the gesture while singing the line, "Thank you, Kanye, very cool." A quote,
Oh, good God.
a quote from a 28. No, wait, it gets better. From a quote from a 2018 tweet by Donald Trump, praising rapper Kanye West. So he was quoting Trump, referencing Kanye days before International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The gesture could have been a mocking reference to West's series of anti-Semitic statements last year, which included praising Hitler. Okay, well, we didn't believe it or not.
That's the seventh circle of hell.
Yeah, believe it or not. I didn't
many
think
bad
that
things
we were
in
gonna
one
be
sentence.
talking
I know.
about Taylor Swift and Nazi salutes in our first 30 seconds, but okay. So I wanted to establish the context. By the way, Erica, an Edmonton gal who now calls Ottawa home, right? You're an economist. People have read your columns in the Hill Times. And Kristin Raworth, a longtime political staffer, political commentator based out of Edmonton. So for people that haven't met you before, that's the context.
We actually switched because I was born in Ottawa, and
Is that right?
Yeah, I was born in Ottawa and live in Edmonton, and she was born there, and now she lives in Ottawa.
What was it? How old were you when you moved to Alberta from Ottawa?
My parents took me away from Ottawa when I was quite young. I was only 6 months old when we moved.
6
to
months,
Edmonton.
okay. So
Yeah,
you didn't
obviously
have
I wasn't
like
like an Ottawa person, but still.
You didn't have like a certain preconceived notion about Alberta. You grew up like in the Alberta
and my mom's
lens.
family is from here, so they're very Alberta.
And how old were you when you moved from Alberta to Ontario?
No, Ontario to Alberta?
Well, were you born in Edmonton though, right?
No, I was born on Queen's campus.
Oh, okay.
KGH,
okay,
baby.
So you have covered the country where you've lived. What years of age were you when you lived in Edmonton?
From about 7 or 8 to like 19.
Oh, okay. So like formative years.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you moved out to Ottawa, everybody in Alberta, there's sort of this axe to grind, and we'll talk about that. I'll play a clip from Danielle Smith's victory speech on Monday night in just a quick second. But Alberta sort of has this feeling that people in Ontario don't respect the province, that they don't respect Alberta's contributions to the federal national economy. When you moved to Ontario, what sense did you get about how people felt about Alberta?
People in Ontario don't know Alberta. People in Ontario don't know anything west of like Sault Ste. Marie. Okay, like.
Are you saying they don't know it or they don't care to know it?
Both. They have an idea. People in Ontario feel like they are somehow more, I guess, liberal-minded and therefore more open, and they are not. Okay? I was like, so being in Edmonton the last couple of days, I'm like, this city is so nice. It's like real. It's still real. Real people who don't put on a lot of airs and graces and stuff like that. Down to earth people, not trying to be anything but themselves. You know, that kind of thing. Like that's the vibe I get. And I'm like, okay, this feels familiar, right? So I find that Ontario presumes a lot of things about Alberta, and you could tell by the coverage. First of all, every time I come out to Alberta, I understand what people say about CBC. About CBC being very regional, very upper Canada. So from like Toronto to Montreal, like CBC covers all of that. And you could tell by the way they talked about the election, it was very, how should I put it? It wasn't with much depth. There wasn't a lot of like considerations involved.
Was there depth? Can I interrupt for a second? You were paying attention, Kristin, to a lot of the Alberta-based coverage. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but was there a lot of depth to the coverage in Alberta, out of Alberta, either?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there was a little bit more in depth on certain ridings, just because what else are you going to do while you're waiting for the votes to come in? Which
the one vote
sure,
that I couldn't figure out.
On election night,
but I don't know that leading up to the election. I talked to Graham Thompson. He's like a veteran political columnist. He's been writing for different Alberta outlets, most notably probably for the Edmonton Journal for like 25 years. And then he's a columnist with CBC and Alberta Views. And Graham was on here talking about he remembers covering elections. Like he's probably covered like 12 elections or something, provincial and federal. And he remembers, and I remember even, I'm not that, whatever. I'm like, I'm middle-aged. I'm middle-aged.
No, they used to be embedded with the campaign.
I was coming up as a reporter, as like a beat reporter in the Klein years. And there were journalists. There would be like 8 journalists that would be riding the buses or like covering the Klein campaign or covering the Taft campaign or covering the whomever, right? And now that's just not the case. You might have one person,
absolutely,
covering the election for an outlet, and it's not fair. I don't know if it's not fair, but to expect that one individual
absolutely
to carry the load that 10 people could.
Exactly, and the thing is I have a problem with resource distribution or what they put their resources in. So I'm watching CBC last night, and I'm picking on CBC, I know, but we all pay for it, so I can. So I'm watching CBC last night, and they were talking about, forest fires in Nova Scotia. And then they had this split screen going live at the U.S. debt ceiling debate. And I'm like, why do I need a split screen of a live feed of why?
Well, you're an economist. Don't you care about that?
Not right now, no. No, not right now.
You're saying the relevance to Canadians is not as significant as...
I'm saying that they didn't have to do a live feed. They could have just wrapped it up, done a story on it, and had their media packs ready.
Yeah, people get excited when stuff's live, though.
Yeah,
people love when it's live.
Really?
People will watch the Senate floor just bustle, even if nothing's happening. People want to see if somebody's going to throw a punch or start yelling at each other.
But I'm just like CBC. I get NBC on like for free, and 24-hour NBC for free on my smart TV. So I don't need CBC to cover all American politics. That is my point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen. Let's focus our conversation here. We don't have to, but let's talk Alberta politics. Let's talk about why Danielle Smith won. Let's talk about how you expect that she's going to govern. Maybe for how long she will govern. There's a lot of balls in the air. This is all speculation. This is what you do after an election. Why don't we start with a snippet, sort of you might call this a bit of a sneak peek on the messaging that you can expect coming out of the Alberta legislature aimed at Ottawa over the next while.
So we need to come together, no matter how we have voted, to stand shoulder to shoulder against soon-to-be announced Ottawa policies that would significantly harm our provincial economy. Now, we have been made aware that in the coming weeks, Justin Trudeau is planning on bringing forward new restrictions on electricity generation from natural gas that will not only massively increase your power bills, but will also endanger the integrity and reliability of our entire power grid, which we rely on during our cold and dark Alberta winters. In addition, the Prime Minister is already ready to introduce a de facto production cap on our oil and gas sector that, if implemented, will result in tens of thousands of jobs lost, tens of billions in lost investment, damage our province's fiscal position, and bring economic hardship to Albertans. Now, I've made myself clear on this matter to the Prime Minister in person and in public, but I feel we need to do it again. Well, hopefully the Prime Minister and his caucus are watching tonight. But let me be clear, this is not a road we can afford to go down. If he persists, he will be hurting Canadians from coast to coast, and he will strain the patience and goodwill of Albertans in an unprecedented fashion. And as Premier, I cannot, under any circumstances, allow these contemplated federal policies to be inflicted upon Albertans. I simply can't, and I won't.
All right, so there she is. I mean, the saber rattling continues. I can't. I won't. I hope he's listening. This is what you expect out of a Western premier. Maybe a little more combative from a Conservative premier. I would have been curious to see how Rachel Notley might have messaged her defense of Alberta, or her opening remarks, if you want to call that, to the next 4 years or however long it lasts. But what did you make of the tone of what Danielle Smith brought to the table Monday night?
I think that's the same tone that she's had since she ran for the leadership. Yeah. And it is a tone. I mean, if there's one thing that's going to get you Conservative votes in Alberta, it's saying that you're going to protect them against Trudeau and against Trudeau policies. And it is a very popular message that resonates. And she just won on that message. So I wasn't surprised to see that she went at him. And I think she will continue to do it. What I do hope, and what I think could be happening behind the scenes, is her conversations privately with him are probably significantly different than that kind of saber rattling and that kind of, fervor that she puts out there, because I do think she acknowledges and recognizes that you can't, yell at someone if you want them to do something for you. So the private conversations, but it will also be very interesting to see who she puts in key cabinet spots that will be dealing with this. So environment, energy, like who are the people that she's going to give those spots to? Because, she's lost her environment minister, Sonia Savage, who didn't run again. And, so it'll be interesting to see how she's
lost the finance minister. She's lost
a lot of people.
Lost the justice minister, right? Yeah. People are and people are looking. And this is, if I'm a rural UCP MLA that's just been elected, I'm going sort of like double banger Trudeau salute to some of the commentary and some of the conversation that's been out right now, because a lot of the chatter early on is that the Conservatives, that the United Conservatives who will form government, have a thin front bench, that there's not like depth, really significant depth in putting that cabinet together. I was interested, Seamus O'Regan joined us, it was probably about a year ago now, approximately, federal minister, obviously Liberal minister, and I asked him about the relationship. What's the relationship like with Alberta right now? And he said, these are my words, not his. I don't remember his exact words. People can check our archive. But he was like, Minister Sonia Savage is delightful. He's like, and cooperative and collaborative, and we're having great conversations. It knocked my socks off to hear it, to hear the truth of the way that it really is. I will say this, how Ontario gets its power versus how Alberta gets its power. Danielle Smith's not wrong in going net zero on a relatively shortened time frame. A province like Alberta that uses coal or natural gas much more than a place like Ontario that uses hydro, for an example, it is going to cost Alberta a lot more. And there are things to be considered. Like, not everything that she's saying is just partisan performative bullshit, right? The question is, like, what are the real issues and what's the real focus going to be? And will we see any sort of cooperation between a United Conservative government and a federal Liberal government? So,
well, here's the thing. It's the fact that we are a resource-based economy, and that is Canada, different resources. If you want to talk in terms of climate change and environmental policy, that is a thin line that has to be kind of walked. And it's a tightrope for any Western politician. And, I always feel like I want to check my facts before, like I need to fact check Danielle Smith. However, it doesn't mean the spirit of what she's saying is wrong, if you know what I mean. If you look at what's happening in England right now in terms of electricity and in terms of cost of heating homes and stuff, that's scary. And if she can kind of like make Alberta fear that, then, she's going to have a pretty good piece of power.
Well, I mean,
Let's put
it's
it that way.
the Pierre Poilievre playbook right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Pinning inflation on the prime minister.
Just
right?
inflation.
Just inflation. And
Like, that's clever.
if you're not, but if you're not the type of person, if you're not like an Erica Ifill who goes, hey, before I like sound off in front of a microphone, I'd like to fact check a few things.
Yeah.
If you're just the average person that's like, oh, I forgot to pay my phone bill, I got to get that, and oh my gosh, I forgot to pick up milk on the way home, and oh my gosh, I ran my cart empty before filling up with gas, and oh, the kids are going to be late for soccer practice. You're kind of believing some of the stuff you're hearing, taking some stuff at face value and not fact checking it.
Feelings don't care about your facts.
Yeah, this was to a certain degree, we talked about this on the show, the day after the one televised debate for the provincial election, and there was a, and you can check it out. You can check out our episode of Real Talk that morning, the morning after, because we referenced the Twitter thread. A guy went on the record and fact-checked Danielle Smith on 37 different statements. I mean, so that just goes to show you say, well, who won the debate? Or, who emerged the winner? Who moved the needle? Who changed minds? Nobody really talked about who is accurate.
Yeah.
Who was presenting facts in good faith.
But that's where media becomes so important. And that's where, and it seems like sometimes mainstream media doesn't do it either. So people have to then find media that they rely on, that they believe, like yourself. So, for example, they're going to say, well, I wonder what Ryan has to say about this tomorrow.
Sure.
Right? And I know he's going to fact check. I know he's going to have people on that are going to fact check.
You know who does a great job fact checking? Our audience.
Oh, I have no doubt.
I appreciate it. I mean, this is one of the really big things that an engaged audience, like the Real Talk audience, brings to the table.
Yeah.
You don't get too far going down the road of something that is polluted with inaccuracy.
I don't
really
get that far on
appreciate
Twitter with my followers. They're engaged, right? And they'll gently fact check me if I'm wrong, right? But I appreciate that because it's not. I really do think that now fact checking is like a community responsibility, which is sad.
Let me hop in on our live chat for a sec. Alberta Girl says, while the UCP is fighting green energy, the prairies are being covered by wind turbines and solar panels. It strikes me as out of touch. Jillian says the issues in England are due to, and by the way, Jillian attended our Real Talk Election Night VIP viewing party, so I had a chance to talk to her. She lived in London for a decade. She says the
I
issues
only
in
lived there
England
for a year,
are
so.
due to, and I was up in the north in the Lake Country for a year. Yeah. She says they're due to no caps on energy prices. The energy companies in England are making record profits. We also had an interesting investigation last Friday. Economist Trevor Toome on the show talking about, as well as Shauna Feth from the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, why they think that actually capping prices is a bad economic policy. If you want to learn more on that, go back and listen to last Friday's Real Talk Roundtable. And then I appreciate a lot of people like Catamus Rex wondering, and we'll get to this later in this episode with these two, who will they blame for all their ills when Trudeau is no longer in power? I'm going to ask these two if they think that Pierre Poilievre is going to win the next federal election. First, let's remind you that this show simply does not happen. Erica, the beer fridges are not full if we don't have sponsors, and that's why we're so grateful for partners like our friends at California Closets. Now, everybody knows them as the best in the business when it comes to custom closets and storage solutions for your entire home. And we've told you about our family room and what they did with our entertainment center, what they've done for our bedroom and the walk-in closet. They're stunning stuff, but what about your garage? I mean, it's always the overlooked part of the house, isn't it? But the garage is the workhorse of the home, so why not make it work a little harder for you? With custom-designed garage cabinetry, drawers, shelves, even specialty wall storage racks. I love what they do. Get those rakes and brooms and everything else off the floor and up into a place out of the way so you can actually, entertain in there. Maybe bring in a foosball table or even park your vehicle in the garage. It all starts with a free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. Hey, Alberta Girl's not wrong in the chat. There are more and more solar panels going up across the country right now, and you know who's installing more of them than anybody else? It's Kubi Renewable Energy. Just check out their website at kubienergy.ca. The projects link is a great way to take a look at some of the installations they've been doing in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Northwest Territories. I mean, I'm looking at an installation in Canmore, Alberta right now. Beautiful. What about in Bella Coola, BC? Shout out to our friends in British Columbia. If you're a journeyman electrician or an apprentice and you would love to be part of the green energy movement in Canada, I'm excited to tell you right now, Kubi Energy is hiring. You can get in touch with them today at kubienergy.ca. Said goodbye to the dogs this morning as I was walking out the door. Moses, our 11-year-old boxer, Monroe, our 4-year-old lab, neither of them even looked at me. You know why? Because they were hammering away at their Grand Dog Essentials quality raw food. Now, they both eat different stuff based on their health requirements. And we've been able to source this out and figure out the best plan moving forward because the team, the family-owned Grand Dog Essentials team, has worked with us to put together the best raw diet, including supplements that give Moses the joint support he needs and actually that help Monroe with her anxiety. You can get in touch with them. This family cares about your furry family members. The promo code REALTALK knocks 10% off your first-time order from granddog.ca, delivered to your door in Calgary, Edmonton, and Central Alberta. And as Erica mentions, the wildfires burning across the country, quite frankly, our thoughts with our fellow Eastern Canadians, our friends in Western Canada. You know that oftentimes an entire community will be impacted by wildfire, and sometimes the recovery can take years. For individual families, it feels like you're starting from scratch. We recommend you trust the team at Complete Care Restoration. They've been helping folks in Fort McMurray, Slave Lake, and other communities get back on their feet after devastating fire damage. And they'll work with your insurance company to make sure that the work is done right the first time. We have personally worked with Complete Care Restoration, and I give you a 2-thumbs-up endorsement. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. Rachel Notley was not wrong when on Monday night after the election, she pointed out gains made by the NDP. But the fact of the matter is, you can lose 6-5 in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and you're not the one drinking champagne out of that cup. We're going to talk about the future of the NDP in just a second with Kristin, Raworth, and Erica Ifill. First, here's the leader of Alberta's official opposition.
Although we did not achieve the outcome that we wanted, we did take a major step towards it. The unprecedented growth of our party through this campaign is a warm light, one that gives me a lot of optimism for the work to come. My friends, let me be clear. Now is not the time to let up. Now is the time to step up.
Kristin, is Rachel Notley going to stay on as leader of the NDP, do you think? What's your gut telling you in this circumstance?
My gut's telling me no. I don't think that she's going to step down anytime in the immediate future, but we're not just talking about 4 years as the leader of the official opposition. If she wants to run again, that's 8 years. She's already been leader of the party for, I believe, 9. So that's a long time. And I think that for her, she's going to have those conversations with her caucus and with her family and what she wants to do. But I would think that in the next year, it would make sense for her to step down and to bring in new leadership and new blood into that party. Yes, she brought them to a considerable gains. They are the most successful they have ever been. But I also think that there's going to be voices in that party who feel like they've gone too far to the center, and some would even argue too far to the center right, and that they made their pitch as progressive conservatives because, let's be honest, that's what they gave us.
Yep.
And it didn't work. And so I think there will be people on the left who said we didn't talk about climate change during this election. We didn't, I mean, to be honest, they didn't talk about much. This election really wasn't about anything other than whether or not people liked Notley or Smith better, which that did not work out well for the NDP, even though Rachel Notley is personally, I think, more popular. However, I think that you're going to have these people saying, where are our left policies? Why are we not talking about these things? Why is our biggest thing that, if you can remember anything other than the tax increase, I can't. That's one of the only things they really talked about. They didn't highlight their social record. They didn't highlight social issues at all. And I think that they would have been better served to go back a little bit more to their roots and focus on some of that positive stuff, like Max talked about yesterday, the $10 a day daycare, accelerating that. Where was that policy announcement? Instead, they spent every single day talking about how much better they were than Danielle Smith and how bad she was, and trying to appeal to progressive conservatives and old school PCers. And I don't think that that's the way forward for the party.
No, and you know, when she came out in that blue, we spent a lot of time talking about her.
You're talking about the televised debate?
Yes. Yes. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about what she was wearing. And I know people are going to say, well, it doesn't matter what she's wearing or what she looks like. It does. Because those are very, very meticulous decisions.
Of course.
Right? And so her coming out looking like a carbon copy of Danielle Smith, sartorially, right, meant that she couldn't really say this person's bad. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't resonate the same way. You know what I mean? Well, there's no, like, they look like twins. And I was like, you cannot come out and tell people that this person's so bad if you are trying to look like this person.
It also highlights the fact that there was little air between the two platforms.
Absolutely.
When you look at both of the platforms, there was not a lot of space because both Danielle and Rachel Notley were trying to appeal to moderate conservatives. So they were talking about moderate conservative stuff. And when she comes out wearing blue and looking like a PCer, it just further hammers that home.
I loved it. I loved the outfit choice.
It was a great suit.
Her hair looked amazing.
Both their hair looked amazing.
But I know pieces when I see pieces, and somebody put in pieces in her hair.
What are you talking about? Extensions?
Yeah, and and it was just lovely. It was flowing, very Charlie's Angels, but not Farrah Fawcett.
I think that the play there. And for people listening on the podcast, I mean, sometimes you got to watch our episodes on YouTube. Right now, Johnny's put the picture up of the two of them standing side by side. And I think that the play there from both the camps is you can see. It's like this is Obi-Wan, right? You have no use for these droids.
Yes.
You can see this woman as your premier. This woman can be your premier, right? And I think that the blue, I mean, I was talking progressive conservative kind of PC the morning after the debate with the strategists. People can check out that roundtable. Stephen Carter, by the way, talking about the fact that people are going to agree, you know, NDP and conservative supporters will agree on 90% of stuff. It's the 10% of stuff they're going to vociferously disagree on. But someone quite rightfully as well and astutely pointed out in our chat, they said blue is also Alberta. You know, there is that conservative kind of a blue connotation. Obviously, the branding is effective, but at the same time, blue represents the Alberta flag. And I think that there was a conscious play there. I'm not sure that.
So why couldn't she come out with Oilers orange? Like, I don't understand.
Oh, I don't think orange looks good on anybody.
Orange
looks great on me. Okay.
Orange is a tough color to pull off.
I'm just saying.
I guess you should run for Premier of Alberta.
No, I am not running for office. But if I did, this would be my tagline.
Okay.
Yes, we can have nice things.
Oh, okay. That's kind of like the champagne approach.
And then my response would be, and how are you going to pay for it, Erica?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something like reallocate resources.
Oh, geez. This is where you make people nervous in post-secondary education and disability support.
Yeah, but I believe in investing in people. I believe in investing in infrastructure. I believe in investing in, first of all, like trickle-down economics is bullshit. It has always been bullshit. It's not really an accepted, it's bullshit. You know, this idea that you can give to the rich and somehow it'll trickle down to the poor, really? I mean, it hasn't worked. It does not work.
History shows that it's not necessarily viable policy.
Oh,
and I think that
I like how you're threading that needle.
Well, I just know, I haven't looked at the live chat yet, but I know that as soon as anybody references even loosely trickle-down economics, it explodes with the audience.
Whatever.
And I'm not surprised. Do you honestly think, either of you, that moving left or swinging back left for the Alberta NDP is a intelligent, intuitive, strategic move to win the next election?
I think there are some progressive values that not that they've abandoned, but that they did not highlight. And climate change is the big one. They did not talk about climate change during the election.
How are they going to get students out to vote for them if they're not talking about climate change? Because there's a demographic sort of connection to some of these issues, right? Especially with climate. So, again, if the NDP is not talking about climate, who's going to talk about climate? Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see everybody talking about climate.
Remember when the NDP...
It's very troubling to me that climate and the environment becomes a partisan issue. Like, we're all breathing the same air. We're all drinking the same water. That to me is really discouraging. There are different ways to approach it. There are different ways to talk about emissions reduction. Do you know that the Supreme
Court just gutted the Clean Water Act?
I hope you're not going to be testing me on this.
No. This is not a test.
Okay.
I am happy to be fact checked.
Yeah.
Happy.
No, but
what my point is that even though I think clean air and water are inalienable rights, right? That's not usually the case. And we actually have to fight to maintain these things. Clean water, clean air, the whole thing. And the fact, if you don't have a voice like the NDP on this issue, then who's going to...
When you look at the future of the NDP in Alberta, and you acknowledge that in your estimation, and we're not chasing Rachel Notley out. We have an interview request in with her. I quite personally like Rachel Notley. Obviously the door's open when she feels like talking and sitting down. We'll bring her here. We'll ask her these exact same questions. She deserves some time to think about it.
Yeah.
Some time to kind of
But she fell into the trap.
After you lose an election, it would suck.
Yeah.
You've worked on campaigns, right?
Yeah.
It's great when you win, and it sucks when you lose.
It really sucks.
But so I don't want to be the whole sort of while the body's still warm talking about but we threw it out there yesterday casually, who could the next leader of this party be? And Max Fawcett had his ideas. He invoked the name of Shannon Phillips as he was drinking from his Raki Pancholi mug. Johnny did some deft editing yesterday. If you follow us on Instagram or TikTok, you can see what I'm talking about with some quick flash photos of some of the candidates and who they might be. And then you know whose name kept popping up from Real Talkers? Ned Nenshi. And I kind of wondered, it was an interesting play. And I did the Sunday magazine on CBC with Ned last Sunday.
No. We talked about this.
Okay, so let's get into this.
We talked about this, yes.
And I sat there and I thought, because he said a few times last week, as he endorsed Notley, several times he said intentionally, she and I had our disagreements. He actually went on the record and said, she's not in the top 5 premiers I worked with. And he said, and I worked with 6. And I went, that is hardly, that's a really interesting endorsement, the way that he worded that. But then the more I thought about it, I went, well, maybe what he's doing is endorsing the party, but saying a Nenshi-led NDP would look different than a Notley-led NDP. And I wondered if he might be posturing to consider a run of the leadership of that party.
But he would maintain that kind of centrist.
Well, who knows? Who knows?
I mean, historically, someone who is not an active part of a party coming in and saying, I'm going to run you, this is going to go great. Ask Jean Charest how that went for him when he ran for the CPC leadership.
Well, it seems to be going okay for Danielle Smith.
But Danielle Smith had been active in the UCP coming together. She was active in the United Vote. But enough that but Nenshi has not been an active member of the NDP at all. And so I think that people throw him out there because he's a Calgary name. He is a well-known, fairly progressive, middle of the road.
He's nationally known.
He's nationally known. He was a very successful politician in Calgary. But I think, from my conversations with people within the NDP, if there is going to be leadership, they want one of their own, and they want someone who's sitting in the legislature, and they want that grassroots stuff. And like Max kind of alluded to yesterday, there is going to be a tension between some of the more left in the party and people who are like Shannon Phillips, who hold those progressive values, but in a more centrist manner. So that's definitely going to be a thing to watch as they move forward. But keeping in mind too, they are bringing in, I think it's more than 14 actually, people who've never sat in the legislature before. It's going to be a big learning curve because it always is, and that's going to be the same thing for the UCP. It's a huge learning curve going from being, especially from the NDP side, being an activist to being a politician. Those are very different roles.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I believe that Notley's not going to make any kind of decision in the near future because she needs to help build that team and build that strength. And she doesn't have to. No, she's the most popular NDP person probably, I would say, in the country.
Yeah, which begs the question, what might her future look like in federal politics if she so chooses to pursue that? Burnout's a factor too. I'm not saying Rachel Notley's burning out. She just ran for office. She wanted the big job again. You never know. You don't automatically assume someone goes from here to there. But if you're prominent and high profile, I do think you're plotting out your next move.
She's probably also waiting to see if Conservatives do what we do best and knife our leader, because that is our favorite activity, is to knife our leaders.
Okay, is that going to happen? Is that going to happen? That's what we'll ask the co-hosts of the Bad and Bitchy podcast in just a second. Make sure you subscribe to Erica and Kristin's show and go ahead and rate it. Us podcasters really appreciate when you rate our shows, when you review the show, and when you tell your friends all about it. Hey, our friends at Friesen Brothers want you to know that this weekend, if you're going to be firing up the barbecue, but you don't necessarily have a specific plan in place, of course, you can go visit them at one of their 16 locations across the province of Alberta, but check out their easy family meal solutions online. It's the Family Essentials Easy Family Meal Solutions flyer. Interesting, simple recipes that can be made using the products that are featured right there in the flyer. And, of course, a lot of grilling and camping tips right now. Seasonal stuff like marinade recipes, even ideas on putting s'mores together. How great is that? The full flyer is available online at friesen.com. That's Freson. For more than 65 years, Friesen Brothers has been Alberta grown and Alberta owned. You know, we're always excited to deliver news from our Real Talk partners like Apex Automation that are just letting you know they're looking for skilled workers. They're building their team right here in Alberta, in BC, across the country, down in their new field office in Houston, Texas. Apex Automation is hiring. If you're an electrical or instrumentation engineer, a computer science or process engineer, a mechanical engineer, an instrument tech, or an electrician, you can apply today at apexautomation.ca and learn more about what they're doing in the fields like autonomous vehicles and machinery, distributed control systems, advanced process controls, robotics, all the cool stuff. Has a bright future ahead of it. You can be part of it by joining the team at Apex Automation. If you're looking to reinvent your outdoor space, if you're like our family, you finally said enough is enough. The lawn looks like it's been beat up for years and it's just not a functional space. Want to have a little bit more pride in our campfire circle when the fire bans lift, of course, and maybe even consider something like a water feature or an outdoor kitchen. Work with Eden Landscaping. They're great listeners. That's their deal. They're not designing your yard for a magazine, though it'll be ready for one. They're designing it for you. And through the project, they never lose sight of the goal, which is making your vision come to life. You can learn about how they work by checking out their website. That's Eden Landscaping online at landscapeedmonton.ca. And I can tell you that Johnny and I will both be treating ourselves this weekend to cool treats from the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Me, personally, I'm going to hit up June's Blizzard Treat of the Month. Happy June 1st, everybody. That's the Reese's Caramel Pretzel Blizzard Treat at the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and in Sherwood Park on Baseline Road. It's a salty, sweet thrill ride up a crunchy pretzel and peanut trail leading to that world-famous DQ soft serve. You can find the June Blizzard Treat of the Month at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Kristin, Raworth, Erica, Ifill joining us, co-hosts of the Bad and Bitchy podcast. You think Danielle Smith will go the full 4 years? Jason Kenney didn't make it the full 4, which I think surprised some people. I think it did surprise some people. If you looked at 1 million+ votes back in 2019, the blue pickup truck seemed unstoppable.
A pandemic will do that.
No, but nobody has since Klein. We have not had a conservative leader fill out their full term since Klein.
Yeah.
And so I think, with Stelmach, when he brought in, at the royalty review,
I like Stelmach.
I worked for Ed Stelmach. I love Ed Stelmach. But when he brought in the royalty review, that started to up the Wild Rose, and that's what helped them. We all know what happened with Alison Redford and her love of private planes. She's why we don't have planes anymore. Alison.
Oh, Alison.
Dave Hancock doesn't really count because he was temporary.
He was a placeholder.
Yeah.
Delightful
placeholder.
Delightful fella.
And then Jim Prentice obviously did not last particularly long. So this is, and even when you look at the federal conservative leadership, this Scheer, as soon as he lost an election that he should have won by all stretches of the imagination, should have won.
With how?
with everything that was going on with Trudeau at that point, after SNC-Lavalin, after blackface, after all of these different scandals.
And I'm with you.
Yeah, but
I'm with you, but they didn't put up somebody. This is the thing. Who they choose, like, I just think... Federally.
Yeah, they choose people who appeal to the base, which is their problem.
Exactly. And these people they can't break into the 905. They cannot break into that suburban area because they scare the shit out of people.
Well, but then they pick someone who's great, because I'm sorry, I love Aaron O'Toole, and I would have loved...
He was a residential school denier.
He is not. That's not accurate.
He was
Aaron
caught
O'Toole?
on tape. He was caught on tape. Do we not remember this?
That's news to me.
That's news to me. I've
Really?
never seen or heard anything like that about Aaron O'Toole.
I will.
You guys keep talking, and I'll do the fact check here.
But anyway, my
on
point...
December 16th of 2020, this per CBC reporting, the headline reads, Aaron O'Toole walks back claim that residential schools were designed to provide education. NDP MP Charlie Angus said that O'Toole engaged in disgraceful revisionist race baiting to win Conservative votes. This in a speech, again, I'm referencing December of 2020, comments made to Ryerson University students, which has since been renamed, obviously, claiming the residential school system was designed to provide education to Indigenous children before it went off the rails and became a, quote, horrible program. In response to this, O'Toole said in a statement, the very existence of residential schools is a terrible stain on Canada's history that has had sweeping impacts on generations of Indigenous Canadians.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to go back to the Aaron O'Toole thing. But Aaron O'Toole was a switch for them to a more centrist, or attempt to be more centrist.
Right.
And
but
then that didn't
I will
work
say
either.
this. He had the best housing plan.
I thought you were going to talk about his platform when he was on the cover in his like muscle shirt.
Oh gosh, no. but
he did have a good housing plan.
He had the best housing plan out of everybody because the Liberal housing plan was garbage. It still is.
Yes.
What do you not like about it?
Do you have another hour?
Yes.
Well, I just don't like when somebody like this is what it's like to
So
go for beers with me.
okay.
If someone walks up and says you're an idiot, I say, well, why am I an idiot? Or
Okay.
this plan is brutal. Why is it brutal?
Let's talk about the first-time homebuyers plan that has very little take-up for a reason.
Okay.
And that's a plan where the government will invest 10% in your home, basically. They'll give you 10%.
As a loan.
Yes, as a loan. That you don't have to pay back until you sell the house.
Okay.
Right? But they're getting 10% of appreciation of the house.
Who is, the homeowner or the government?
The government.
Okay.
Right? And I don't...
Sounds like a win-win.
For the government or for you, like, I don't want the government having 10% of my house. I mean, it didn't have take up, number one, because the criteria... And they've lifted this now. The cap was at $120,000 of income per household, right? And they've raised that cap to $150,000, but you can only borrow 4 times that cap, right? And look at house prices. It just didn't keep up with the rapid growth of house prices.
Yeah, I get really twisted up on this. And Raworth, I know that you also become I won't describe how you feel about it, but like me, we're not afraid to sort of like acknowledge that sometimes our left-leaning tendencies will inform our feelings on something, and sometimes our right-leaning tendencies. And here's one, and this is one for me, where I get very uncomfortable with the idea of governments, and I'm going to use the supercharged word of meddling in the free market. And I do acknowledge that affordable housing is a real issue. It is. And I do acknowledge that it's an issue if Canadians in markets like Vancouver and Toronto can't afford housing. I would also say you're not entitled to live in beautiful, sprawling properties within 5 minutes of the downtown core. And I think it's dangerous when government starts to really interfere with the free market. And so I don't have a definitive position on this. I do think that there needs to be well-funded municipal and especially provincial and federal initiatives on affordable housing. But I don't love the idea of politicians stepping in to pump the brakes on markets.
No, because they make them worse, usually.
Yeah,
they exacerbate the problem. Is my
I'm
point.
from the government and I'm here to help you.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. This is an interesting.
That gave me a
Go
chill.
to some of these comments. Jillian says, "How does Trudeau wearing blackface 20 years ago make me think I'll vote for a guy who today thinks I'm not a person and wants to take my rights away?" That's kind of an interesting comment there.
No. Okay, let me talk about this blackface 20 years ago, okay? Because it's amazing to me how much anti-blackness just gets swept under the rug. Like it's nothing.
Jillian's black, by the way.
Well, sorry, Jillian.
I don't know if that changes your...
No,
I just
it
want
doesn't.
you to have the facts.
Jillian, you should damn well know better.
Oh, jeez.
No, I'm sorry. You're not gonna say, yeah, you did blackface, but hey, that's okay. I mean, obviously we did. But my point is bringing it up. Okay, so number one, when conservatives bring it up, it's not in good faith. It's never in good faith. It's all to dunk on Trudeau, and you're just bringing stuff up just to dunk on him. You don't give a shit about blackface, right? Secondly, when people say to me, that's over, it's like you're saying racism is over. It ain't. So I have a problem with people sweeping that stuff under the rug. Now, it doesn't have to be definitive of that person's character now, right? It doesn't have to be definitive. It's not like I'm saying Trudeau is an anti-black asshole. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we need to recognize when these things happen, not to sweep them under the rug. And what Trudeau should have done in that case is say, listen, yeah, I did it. It was wrong. I've lived, I've learned, and this is what I've learned. I would have been cool with that. Because what he's doing in a leadership position is saying, I have done that work to learn. We all should be doing that work to learn. Right? That's
I don't
it.
disagree with the word you've said.
That's
I don't
it.
disagree with the word you've said.
And I would have been fine.
Evan on the live chat says, I'm sorry, Jespo, but the free market is what's fucked up the housing market to begin with.
Oh, you got told.
That from Evan. He says, well, I mean, and Evan and I would probably have a great time over beers, and we could debate this, but he says, I'm trying to look for a house to rent in the fall. The leasing agent told us there were 3 houses next to each other, all owned by some guy living way over in Ontario. Why is that okay? Why is that not okay? I don't know. Why is that not okay? Now we're going to start saying you got to live in where you like. What about Albertans that want to own cottages and cabins in the shoe swap? What about I don't know. Whatever. We don't need to get off track on this. Maybe we would just disagree.
No, this is my thinking phase.
Justin says there's no such thing as a completely free market. He says government regulation needs to,
right.
and of course he is right. Justin's a sharp guy. He says government regulation needs to curb the worst aspects of rampant capitalism.
Market
and then
failures, right?
And he quite rightfully says, look at the orphan well problem in Alberta. That is the free market. Yeah, a whole new take on free, Justin. You're absolutely right. Let's transition to talk on federal politics before we run out of time. I just looked at the clock and realized, of course, we could go till noon if we wanted to, but there was an exchange in the House yesterday between,
good God,
you know where I'm going with this,
I
the Prime
do.
Minister and Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the official opposition, obviously the leader of the Conservatives. We can talk about unserious people, absolutely. So it was kind of along the lines of like, let's make Trudeau a drama teacher again. This is the common trope that you hear, and the Prime Minister hit it head on, and then something else happened.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was a high school teacher before getting into politics, and I'm having a little trouble remembering what exactly the job that the Leader of the Opposition had before getting into politics. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan to fight climate change. We have a plan to continue to move forward on supporting Canadians with a grocery rebate, with a growing economy, with great middle-class jobs. We're delivering health care supports for Canadians from coast to coast to coast, delivering dental care that has helped 300,000 kids access dental care over the past number of months, including 1,100 in his own riding. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be there for Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, and he left right in the middle of the semester, and I'm having trouble remembering why. Now, Mr. Speaker.
Interesting to see Leslyn Lewis's face on that. I don't think she
I was looking at Michael Chong.
Who stayed sitting down because he's a good man. So did Scott Atchison.
Okay. Let's get into it.
what Poilievre is alluding to in that comment is an online conspiracy that began with the Buffalo Chronicles. By the way, if anyone reads that, don't. And the rumor is that Trudeau is alleged to have been involved with a student, which is why he left the school, and that there was some large NDA, which is why this student has never appeared anywhere. And this has been consistently raised since 2018, 2019. And it's a very much online conspiracy. It's along the lines of this of, he's Castro's son and this and that. And that is what Poilievre is alluding to there, which is completely disgusting in my opinion. And, I tweeted about it yesterday and oh my Lord, rip my mentions because all the crazies came out to the yard, including one who told me he wanted to shoot me. So that was fun.
But it didn't violate Twitter's terms of service.
It didn't. It didn't.
Wild.
Fun. But this is who he is speaking to. That's the bigger problem for me, is that he knows exactly what he's doing making that comment, and he knows exactly who he's activating.
Absolutely.
And it's those people who believe all of these conspiracies about Trudeau. And I'm no Trudeau fan. I am not at all. But
you are the world's biggest Joe Clark fan.
That is true, because Joe Clark is awesome and fantastic.
But not a huge Trudeau fan.
But but you know what? I like to criticize his policies and real things that actually exist, not crazy random made up stuff. And Pierre Poilievre, as the leader of the official opposition, should be better than that.
Absolutely. So, unserious people. Okay. This is so unserious, but it has serious consequences. Because unserious people are dangerous, okay? Because their shit has serious consequences. The fact that, let's look at the official leader of the opposition, who has a placement in the political structure that is hella important, right? Is bringing in conspiracy theories into the House, into Parliament. Are you for real? And what does that say about combating misinformation? We don't give a shit about combating misinformation, because if so, that wouldn't be happening, or he would have been censored in some way. Jagmeet Singh got censored for calling somebody a racist. Why isn't Pierre Poilievre getting censored? That is my question, because the fact is that he is legitimizing these conspiracy theories by bringing them into Parliament and talking about them. And we don't have a media that's going to push back on that.
Well, and the other thing is because of the way that he frames it, he is speaking to those people directly. He's not raising an issue that now all of a sudden regular Canadians, I was going to say regular Canadians who watch QP, but who is that?
Yeah.
That's not regular.
No, that's these people. But
it's us geeks and nerds.
Yeah.
Not normals. Normals do not do that.
No.
But it's speaking to the direct, and he knows that. And he knows he's speaking to the people that, because I think sometimes one of the issues that I have with the CPC is that since Bernier left and since the creation of the People's Party of Canada, it feels like the Conservatives are trying to win back those votes.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the riding that we're in right now, Edmonton Center, federally, James Cumming lost by the percentage of votes that went to the People Party.
To Randy Boissonneau.
Yeah, he lost to Randy Boissonneau, but when you look at the percentage for the People's Party, if those people had stuck with the Conservatives, James could have won. And so I feel like this is the model that Poilievre is looking at, is getting those people back. And one of the ways he's apparently chosen to do that is by saying shit like this in QP.
Yeah, but at what risk?
Exactly. And at what risk? Because it puts the Prime Minister, again, at risk of all sorts of crappy things being said about him.
Mm-hmm. But not only that, is that we're assuming that this is staying online, right? Mm-hmm. And nothing like that starts online stays online. So he's actively putting people at risk by promoting these conspiracy theories, because it's a short line between that and showing up with where the Prime Minister is, or showing up at Rideau Hall or something like that.
As has happened.
And that is the dangerous part. And nobody is talking about how dangerous that is and how he's setting that up.
I wanted to get back to the live chat on this. Tony, on the context of Justin Trudeau and blackface, says he's apologized many times for those photos. What does he have to do? Cut out a kidney?
I told you what he has to do. Weren't you listening?
Ken says Trudeau said wearing blackface was something that he, quote, deeply, deeply regrets, but insists that he's not the man that he was years ago. And Jillian has followed up and said Erica is correct that conservatives don't bring up blackface in good faith. Where we differ is the left trap of looking for that alternative that isn't in front of us, which hands the right wins. That's Jillian's follow-up.
No. I don't give a crap about what's right is right. At the end of the day, everybody excusing it can excuse it all they want to. What's right is right. He apologized once.
Do you think people are excusing it?
I think when it happened, people were very quick to say, he apologized, bye. And he didn't. This man couldn't answer how many times he did it. He couldn't answer what context, like what were you doing at the time, and da-da-da-da. I mean, this guy was so committed, he did his knees. Okay? His whole body was into it. He's done it multiple times. Mark Miller was there when he did it once.
Minister of Indigenous Services,
right?
Or at least
so
at one
my
time.
thing is that as soon as it came out, everybody, and I'm going to say white people especially, were just like, that was so long ago. He was a kid. He was 29. Okay? And there is this perpetual forgiveness of certain things. So, for example, there's
Is it fair to say that everybody wants to forgive their person?
They do.
Is there a way to say that the same person that will, and I'm not talking about you, Erica, but the same person that will go at Justin Trudeau for the next 10 to 15 years for wearing blackface will be totally fine with newly elected Lacombe-Panoka MLA Jennifer Johnson reconciling her comments about gender divergent kids as feces and cookie batter. They'll be fine with her learning from this and rejoining the Conservative caucus in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
Like, can we acknowledge that someone will be perpetually outraged? And I'm not diminishing blackface. It's not a good look.
No.
I
know what
I'm
you're
just
saying.
Right?
I know
you
what
get
you're
that
saying.
It's unacceptable for the rest of Justin Trudeau's living, breathing time on earth that he did that, but it's fine that person X did this because they represent our political
People
party.
are only allowed to change if we politically agree with them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then they are not. And I think just to touch briefly on
I didn't expect to spend this much time on
Me neither,
blackface.
but that's okay.
I think what we also do. Someone made the argument on your show. I can't remember who. That basically now with some of the comments that Danielle Smith's made, those are in the can. They're done. Like they can't be reused in 4 years because they happened.
Yep.
She won the election.
Played the cards.
And so I think that there's a difference between, the blackface issue as a politically strategic tool. Mm-hmm. Like if Poilievre runs and then goes off about blackface, Trudeau's won twice since then.
Right.
It is not a political tool that will be effective in moving votes anymore.
I wouldn't believe him anyway.
Okay, let me ask you this before we wrap. If you're just joining us live streaming the audio app,
Mixlr. Wait, what?
What do you mean? We gotta go.
Because we didn't even get to the feds.
Well, this is what I'm asking you. Who's going to win? This is what we're going to wrap with. Who's going to form the next federal election? Who's going to form the next federal government? Is it going to be Pierre Poilievre or is it going to be the Liberals? And if it is the Liberals, is it going to be a Justin Trudeau-led Liberal Party? I have to believe that Trudeau wants to beat Poilievre in an election. They've never squared off. And I also believe that there's, with no disrespect to some very intelligent and experienced frontbenchers within the Liberal caucus, I believe personally right now that Justin Trudeau is the Liberals' best bet to beat Poilievre, but he might also be their Achilles heel.
Yep.
What do the two of you think?
Absolutely.
So where does this federal election go? In the next 2 years. I'm not saying this one like it's coming soon. Jagmeet Singh says they're going to keep propping him up.
Yeah, they gave away all their power.
The NDP did?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's good for the Liberals. Poilievre's, I got to say, doing a hell of a job in opposition. He's infusing a lot of energy into that conservative movement.
He is.
He's raising a lot of money. He's doubled their membership. So what happens?
And he's sidelined really good politicians, too. So is it me or does Poilievre have a bit of an issue with attracting women?
Well, I mean, the facts show that is the case.
Okay.
Like the polling and numbers.
Right. And some of the most talented women, the Michelle Rempels of the party, for example, have been sidelined by him. Don't you think you may need to rectify that?
I'm surprised. Melissa Lantzman, I think, is one that they could really build a lot around. And I'd be curious to see how they're going to use her in the next little while.
She's a huge star for that party. She's
I agree.
A huge star.
Yep.
And she represents, I think, the future of what that party can look like. Her, Eric Duncan, there are some good people who came in over the last little while. I think that for Poilievre, he has to almost hope that the economy stays where it's at because, and whether or not this is factually accurate, and people argue about this all the time, if the issue is the economy, it tends to very much support conservatives. However, I think that if he continues with the messaging around things like, I will cancel $10 a day daycare... Good luck, buddy.
Unserious. Like anybody who's going to run on that or even say that out loud is unserious.
And the same thing with dental care. I mean, you can't, once a group of people have been given something and a support, and you're going to tell a parent who is saving $1,000 a month on daycare and money on dental care for their child, oh no, I'm going to give you a tax credit instead. That is just not going to work. So I think that if he stays,
and it's not going to work in Ontario.
No.
And it's not going to work in Quebec. Well, Quebec has their own thing, but it's not going to work in Ontario, and it's not going to work in the places he needs to win, because those suburban moms love $10 daycare
and
for
also
obvious reasons.
Yeah, and if we've seen anything from what happened with Rachel Notley, I mean, a year ago, and I think I even said this to you, I thought the NDP was going to win the election provincially. I think everybody had a very good sense because they were up in every single possible way in fundraising and the polls. And look where we are now. A lot can happen in a year and
absolutely.
Or 2 years.
This is why I'm not making a prediction.
All right. Well, it's a little early to make predictions, but let me say
I don't know.
This is like the lamest take of it that I will offer up, and that is that I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. How's that? That's bullshit.
Bureaucratic.
It's so much fun having Erica, Ifill, and Kristin Raworth with us in studio. A podcast crossover episode. So may I see? It's an honor to appear in a way on your podcast, because this is going to be released by Bad and Bitchy as well. Make sure you subscribe to Bad and Bitchy and show them some love by rating and reviewing. You guys have like a front row seat for our Friday tradition now. Are you guys ready?
I'm excited. This is my second trash talk.
This is your second trash talk in person.
Wait. How does this work?
So these are real emails, right? We don't identify like their email addresses or their last names.
Okay.
These are every single week presented by our friends at Local Environmental Services. You can get a free quote today at Local Environmental.ca in Alberta and Saskatchewan. You see how we do that, Erica?
Yeah.
It's shameless, but it's very effective.
I don't knock a hustle.
So, oh no. And this is the first, obviously, let me say, it's the first trash talk since the election. So this is an Alberta election edition of a little something we call Trash Talk. All right, this one from Rebecca, who says, I am so sick of listening to people wax on about how this election was the NDP's to lose, a missed shot on an open net. Pull your heads out of your asses. This is solely on the shoulders of the voters and non-voters of Alberta, the people who think this election was a choice between a bad option and a worse one. One party is steeped in hate and ignorance and ludicrous increases to cost of living and unethical actions, and the other is orange. This was Alberta voters missing a shot on an open net. This wasn't a loss for the NDP. This was a loss of common sense and decency for the province of Alberta. That from Rebecca. This from Brad Jesperson. Your praise of Danielle Smith's speech is really odd to me. Like it was literally boilerplate. I gave her credit for saying that she's going to learn from her mistakes yesterday. I don't know if I praised it, Brad, but I digress. He says it could have been worse. She's proven to lie. Like, let's see what she actually does. Like, I don't know, giving jobs to failed Edmonton candidates. They're calling it the Council of Losers she's going to consult with. That's bonkers. Brad says, this isn't good. He says, by the way, I'm shocked that every media outlet and every reporter is not in central Alberta right now, in Lacombe, Ponoka, asking people on the street why the hell they elected a person that literally called children pieces of shit. Something's wrong with society. This is the type of stuff that people used to resign over. Like Rick Bell even on your show saying, I didn't write about it. It didn't move the needle. Yeah, no shit. It didn't move the needle because you didn't write about it. Everybody glossed over it, made it normal. You know, Sally in her Facebook group hears people say stuff like that all the time, and nobody in the group says anything, right? If Rick Bell or others would have stood up and called it abhorrent and saying she should step down, then the normal reaction would have been that. But now we have thousands of people in Alberta thinking this is mainstream. Brad says, I bet you by October she's back in caucus and all is well, and it's fucking terrible. That from Brad. What about this from Sylvia, who says it hasn't taken long for Danielle Smith to show her ignorance of democracy with a desire to create a council of the defeated, a council of losers to advise about Edmonton issues. When you interview her next week, Ryan, maybe you could remind her that all these people were, not elected in Edmonton, and ask her how she thinks that democracy is supposed to work. We have duly elected MLAs, duly elected City of Edmonton councillors, and a mayor that we have chosen to represent us. How about she starts there? Sylvia says, by the way, great job on pre-election coverage. Thanks, friend. This one from Tanya, who says, hi there, moderate conservative Alberta. I see you out there. You voted conservative your whole life. You convinced yourself to do so again because even though Danielle Smith and Take Back Alberta scares the crap out of you, you told yourself that it would be okay. The moderate voices in the party and cabinet would keep things normal. Status quo, the way it has been for generations. It would all be okay. She will soon be gone. Tanya then, in all caps, says, pause for breath, wipes tears from eyes. My friends, you have been played. Welcome to Wild Rose, far-right Alberta. Your party is gone. You lost it. Even if Smith goes, her replacement will be even battier. We're going to get the government we voted for. And once the smoke and the mirrors from the campaign clear, they'll show themselves soon enough. So now is the time, says Tanya, to really stand up for what you believe in. Join us over in the My Vote Belongs to Me, Not a Party camp and shed the blue hue. See this government for what it is, not what you wish it to be. And we'll see you again in 2027. That from Tanya. And we wrap with one from Randy, who says, Ryan, I just listened to Real Talk podcast for the second time last night. I was tipped off on the link from Danielle Smith's website. I find it troubling that there is a continued attack on her for her views and past comments. He says, I'll keep this short, as the last email I sent you, you didn't even have the courtesy of sending a reply or an acknowledgement of the message I sent. I have found this very common from people who don't want to have a conversation about the issues. It's also common with people that get a lot of fucking emails, Randy. But thanks for taking the time to chime in. He says, why don't you do a show called Rachel Notley, Two-Time Loser? I'll tune in for that one for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, Randy, yesterday we wondered what went wrong with the NDP, and you can find that episode on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can send us your trash talk to talk@ryanjesperson.com, proudly presented by our friends at Local Environmental Services. Erica Ifill, Kristin Raworth, great friends of Real Talk, and it's awesome, and I'm proud to be a friend of Bad and Bitchy. We're off tomorrow, friends. We'll see you again Monday. Charles Adler and Dr. Lisa Young on Danielle Smith's populist governance plan. We'll get into it, and we'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford.